you have to leave the comfort zone if you want to see change and if you want to transform something. If it doesn't feel risky, if it doesn't feel uncomfortable, and if you kind of don't have very long days and weekends where you think about, is it the right approach, then I think we both agree that you're not on the right track to really aiming for change.
Listeners, hi. I'm here with Nicolas Dürr, co-founder and CEO of futurebrains. Welcome, Nicolas. How are you today?
Hey, Robert. Great to be your guest, and I'm fine, thanks. What about you?
I'm excellent. Yes. Where are you calling in from today?
From Karlsruhe, Germany. So that's an hour south of Frankfurt and 80 kilometers west of Stuttgart. So close to France. Pretty nice area.
Yeah, sounds it. I've never been. All right. So could you share your founding vision behind futurebrains and explain what it truly means to transform B2B products?
Happy to do so. Let's maybe start with the name, the combination of future and brains. Initial idea was to really work on the future, actually, on innovative things, on new business models, platforms that scale. And the brain comes in because my goal is, or the initial goal was, and that's how we approach like our projects, to be smart about it and to approach the new things in a smart way and not in a way where we are biased and just follow some hype without thinking about whether this is worth following. So that's behind futurebrains. So we are a software agency. We develop software. That's like the big picture. And I always say we are kind of an extended workbench, but with a brain. So we have that again. So we aim for projects where clients are also like open to being challenged and not only state, okay, here's a set of features, just develop that, but we have no clue whether there is a need out there in the market. So we support our clients in the product strategy, in the market validation, the go-to-market strategy, and actually also in bringing the piece of tech to life. To add one more thing regarding the cash cow, I mean, that's something we currently play with, or we started to play with, because at the end, the goal should be to be successful. And that means to have money in the bank and to have something that can be sold and that's bought and where people are willing to pay for. So that's behind us.
Wow, that's a great story. Driving transformation. That's awesome. Research I've done, you guys specialize in strategic consulting and implementation. What are 1 to 2 key strategies or frameworks you consistently find most effective for B2B clients?
That's a very good question. So I can definitely tell one thing. Focusing on technology and technology only is not the right approach. Most of the problems we see out there is a solution for that already on the technology side of things. But where things happen to be like a big mess or versus a big success is, of course, like mindset and culture, to approach new things in a different way and to question the status quo and not like leave that space where we say, okay, but we've done it this way. We have been doing that for the past 20 years and we continue doing the same thing, but expecting different results. So it's a lot about mindset, culture, having the right people that aim for being successful and that aim for a transformation and bringing in change. And the second thing that's related to that is as a leader, acting as a role model and like living the new, living the transformation and like act as a role model and as a good example and show people how it is better to not waste 6 to 12 months on slides only, but to go to the market and talk to people and ask for feedback, ask for problems that are worthy to be solved and not hiding in a basement and thinking about some cool idea that maybe lead to some form of result. I think that's the 2 things. Maybe to add one more thing in the product space, to get rid of fear and approach people and ask them whether the idea or the big vision that the company has in mind or the leader has in mind is really something the market is waiting for. So those 3 things, what I see a lot is that people state, okay, we are too early. We don't have a finished product or a solution. Same counts for the automation side of things. When we look inside the company, we're not done yet. We have to polish this. We have to tweak that, instead of actually approaching the people that are affected by the big vision or by the piece of tech and asking for feedback and really leaving the fear aside. I think those three things are quite important.
Yeah, and you can also be off base, right? What you think is that perfect pitch or that perfect product line that you're pushing. When you're out to market early, your initial vision could change, right? With the feedback that you get. It's so important.
Absolutely. And you have to be open. You have to be open to pivot, to bring in that word, and to say, okay, we were totally wrong, but from today, we like focus on something new. And I just had a chat. That was a pretty good example that was 2 weeks ago with the founder, very successful company. And I have a lot of respect for that, which I also told him. But in his mind, he was following an approach on the technology side of things that I challenged actually, because I see different needs in the market and different requirements. And I challenged that. And the answer that I got was like, yeah, but I've been working as a developer and as a tech person for the past 30 years. I know how we have to do it. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe it sounds right in your own very own head and mind, but to me it sounds wrong at the moment, and maybe others feel and think the same because they have completely different requirements. And that's what I'm aiming for, actually being open to being challenged and being open to pivot and change the direction based on the real needs in the market.
Yeah. Not getting married to one thought or one process, being able to pivot, being agile. The more you're willing and open to do that, and like I've had that own experience in my life. If you're willing to be open, willing to pivot as many times as is possible to succeed, you're almost bettering your chances of success in the long run. Being open to criticism, being open to different ideas, and sometimes getting out of your comfort zone, right? Your initial thought is great. It's what started the process, but being married to that could ultimately hurt you, depending on what the marketplace is telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that point you made, that's quite hard for many people out there. And this is actually leaving that comfort zone, because the comfort zone, that's comfortable, that's warm. I know what's happening. There is no risk. I get my salary. I know that lunch break is at 12. I know that the day ends at 5. And leaving the comfort zone, I mean, you have to leave the comfort zone if you want to see change and if you want to transform something. If it doesn't feel risky, if it doesn't feel uncomfortable, and if you kind of don't have very long days and weekends where you think about, is it the right approach, then I think we both agree that you're not on the right track to really aiming for change, because change means uncertainty. And that's what keeps us busy, what keeps our minds busy. We have to think about that. We have to try it out. We have to grab a piece of paper and a Sharpie and write down the ideas and throw it away and think about, okay, maybe there's a different approach we should follow. So leaving the comfort zone, that's for sure needed. And the second point, yeah.
Oh, no, continue. I'll
and the second point, which I love, we had a project with AWS some weeks ago, and they have something in their DNA, and that's the statement: fall in love with the problem and not with a solution. I mean, that sounds like, yeah, okay, it's a no-brainer, but come on. We see it in our daily lives completely different. We fall in love with a solution immediately. There's that piece of tech, there is that canvas, there is this and that we can grasp and actually start executing on without knowing what the real problem is we want to solve. So yeah, I love that approach. And
no, that's great. Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. I think that's inherent. I think people generally migrate to the quick fix, right?
Yeah.
But, I think the term getting out of your comfort zone sizes up where the world is today as it relates to AI. It's those companies and those businesses and those individuals out there in the marketplace today, I don't care where you are, have to work to understand what AI is going to bring to the marketplace. And it's going to, most people, it'll be uncomfortable. It's the not knowing that's the uncomfortable part, but not moving out of your comfort zone to be able to understand or maybe implement it is really going to change the landscape of business. The people that do it and embrace it are going to succeed. The people that don't and aren't willing to move, fortunately, I think are going to suffer a horrible end. And I think, as harsh as that sounds, it's so true. I mean, we're at the ground floor of AI. And people have to be willing to try to understand it. You don't have to go all in on it, I don't think I'd recommend that. I always say to clients and people like yourself on podcasts, AI is the perfect, if you had to strike the perfect chord, it's the relationship between the human being and AI, right? It's
Yeah.
how that process works, right? You and I, just like everyone else in the world, we love the back and forth, the human contact, the back and forth. But it's how you use AI to make yourself more efficient, better, faster, smarter. At the end of the day, you're going to end up with a better result. And that relationship is different for everyone, right? So, yeah, I think it's so important. Yeah. So, the research
Can
I've
I
done on future brains, you
can,
guys have a
can
strong focus on AI and automation agents, right? How are these technologies, do you feel, are fundamentally reshaping the B2B landscape today?
it's already reshaping the whole landscape, and it has been doing so since the release of ChatGPT 3 years ago. To state an example that was yesterday, I posted about that this morning. I was attending an AI conference, and there was that lady that approached me because we were talking about N8N with some other guy, and we talked about automation and what the models can do, where they are good at, where they are not so good at. And she had a mechanical engineering background, and she was like, yeah, I have that specific task, but the AI can't do it. And we were like, yes, I can do it actually, and solve your problem. And she was like, no, that's not possible because it's very complex, and the mathematics and the calculations behind that. And I was like, then let's try it. Let's open up ChatGPT and let's raise that question and give it the task that you were just raising and stating. It was about calculating forces in her specific field. And you know what? The result was pretty good.
Yeah.
And the next thing, that was 1.5 minutes in total. And then she said like, yeah, those are the right calculations and the result is correct and this and that. But I can't like now change the parameters in an easy way. And then I was like, hold my beer. And I was prompting again, and I was telling ChatGPT to come up with a front end for it so that I can tweak the parameters. And 30 seconds later, I had a front end where I could play around with and calculate the different forces and the number of clamps that are needed. And she was totally shocked. So coming back to your question, there are changes already happening, and there are still people out there that haven't received the note or the memo that says, hey, figure it out, test the AI, challenge it, and figure out how it fits into your daily business and where it can help you. That's definitely the recommendation. We talk to companies, 200 people. They say, yeah, we only have 5 ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot licenses or whatsoever. So 5. Why not 200?
Right.
Yeah, because it's too expensive and we don't really believe in it. And I'm like, okay, that's maybe $20 per person per month. The return on invest is 15
knows?
minutes of using
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
those $20 of
Tasks
investment.
that a single person could do today using AI,
Right.
back in the day, would require a company hiring another person or hiring 2 people, right? And everything that goes along with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
AI doesn't sleep, it doesn't require healthcare, it doesn't take vacations, right? Works 24/7.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And especially those businesses that are very, very much paper driven, there is a high chance of easily coming up with an AI-backed workflow that gets rid of some manual task that involves like reading that piece of paper and putting some numbers into Excel or some other BI tool or whatsoever, because the AI can do the OCR and recognize even handwritten notes. We were just working on some case. And so it's already reshaping the landscape. And another aspect is coming up with smaller use cases and solutions that can easily be integrated with Claude or ChatGPT or whatsoever via the new protocols such as MCP or agent-to-agent protocol, just to name them, as a software vendor, to be open for that, so that some large language model can consume the data that's in my solution. And the ones that currently focus on that, they are quite successful. And those that still think about whether some form of interface, some REST API or whatsoever, whether they should invest in it or they shouldn't, it's almost too late, kind of. And there are so many possibilities due to the multi-modality of the large language models, because it's not only about text, it's about voice, it's about image recognition, object detection in images. Sky's the limit. And you can come up with an idea where companies have been investing millions and millions of euros in or dollars and come up with an idea almost overnight by using the new technology. So what do I want to say based on these examples or by stating them is wake up and really figure out how the technology can either help you to automate your tasks internally or how it helps you to bring in new value in your product. Those two dimensions are quite important.
Yeah, I think you probably answered my next question was what practical advice would you offer professional service firms looking to leverage AI today? And I think you probably kind of answered that.
Use it. One statement regarding that, and then we can also talk about the agentic stuff also, of course. There are companies out there and people we talk to, they have like that Excel sheet with 150 potential cases where they are like, okay, we thought about that for 6 to 12 months. Those are 150 cases and they have the certain potential, but we don't know where to start. Gosh, pick one. Pick one. And figure out how good or bad the technology is, because the learning curve will be quite steep. And that's the goal. You have to aim for a steep learning curve at the moment because, I mean, things change so fast. OpenAI released the agent builder. Now you can put in guardrails into your automation, PII that will be filtered out. You can quite easily consume other services via MCP. So they are not sleeping and they are attacking existing business models. And this happens within a couple of weeks. And the same counts for Claude, for Perplexity or Anthropic and Perplexity and so forth. But also the big software vendors, they don't sleep. The Salesforces and SAPs or the Microsofts of the planet, they are quite fast. The goal should be to pick one case.
Pick one. Well, I think the landscape and the professional world, I think so many people, when you ask them about AI, it's ChatGPT. That's AI to them, right? That most people don't have the knowledge to understand that there's so many other platforms out there that specialize in, and excel better than ChatGPT in certain aspects. So that's why, we really are on the ground floor of AI and how people look at it today. I mean, I ask that question all the time and they say, oh yeah, we use, ChatGPT every day. Well, that's great, but that's only scratching the surface. As awesome as ChatGPT is, it's scratching the surface in today's AI technology.
Yes, so maybe adding one more point to that. I mean, where to start? Of course, don't start with a case where you want to build like the next rocket that brings us to Mars. That's not what I'm talking about. It of course has to be a case that pays into your business goals or pays into efficiency or into revenue generation. But if you have 30 cases that pay into those dimensions, then maybe let your gut feeling decide where to start. Pick a case where you see the first result within a couple of hours or days. I mean, to state an example, I was giving a workshop on Gen AI for like, I don't know what the right term is, like the next generation of founders of family-owned businesses where the kids like jump in and take over the business. And I shared a couple of cases where I said, look, I have sticky notes on the wall. I can just take a picture with my mobile phone and have ChatGPT structure it in a machine-readable format. The colors, the handwritten note, the clusters, and I can use it in my workflow and don't have to type it into a PowerPoint or some Excel sheet or whatsoever. I can let the technology do it. And we were talking about a lot about the multi-model case. And there was one very smart lady, no tech background, but she approached me a week later and she was like, you know what? We have so many pieces of paper. They get lost. People forget about them. And then we have to search for it. And there's money behind that actually, because if you lose that piece of paper, you don't know what you should put on an invoice. And hey, is there a solution for that? And we came up with a prototype in a couple of hours. And she was totally amazed and shocked at the same time how easy it is, but how big the potential is. And she started to think about other cases. And this was just a couple of hours of investment, not weeks, not months. And that's that message has to go out there. So start and figure out where it's working.
Yeah. Take the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you throw that stuff away, in a week because there is a better approach or there is a better model or a better tool, then so be it. We have to get used to that.
But you're not going to know unless you take the first step. And that's where
Exactly.
that comfort zone comes in. Or so many people struggle with it. It's procrastination. And you're just not going to know. Just take that first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much more out there. You raised it in your question with the agents. Yes, there is also a lot of hype around it, but also a lot of potential, like having some service running 24/7 that takes care of mails, customer complaints, bug fixing of code. Even that is working. Of course, not 100% correct. Are we as a human being always 100% correct and on point? No.
Not
We
even
aren't.
close. Not even
Exactly.
close.
And even there, I mean, I just read there is a new report by G2. They just published it that 57% of companies already started to use agents and play around with it. Not only playing around with it, but having it like in a production environment and running 24/7. So there is a growing number of agents out there and companies that make use of it and even there figure it out where it makes sense and where it works perfectly well and where it
and what works for you won't necessarily work for the next guy.
Yeah.
You got to play around with it, train it through your product lab and your AI lab. It seems to be like you guys are at the forefront of innovation. What trends in technology do you believe will have the most significant impact in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you taking steps today to position yourself? Is FutureBrains taking the steps today to position yourself for these changes? And, it's kind of a loaded question. You could ask anyone, you ask me where I think AI is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to get different answers. And we might have some similarities, but, there's also that huge thing. You just don't know, right? I mean, there's so much in terms of, the framework around AI that the country and the governments have to put in place. There's just so many tangibles. But if you had to pick some significant trends or technologies that you believe we're gonna experience over the next 3 to 5 years, and how are you looking at it, and B, how are you positioning yourself?
Well, that's
And you might not know.
The first question is pretty hard to tackle. The second one, how we position ourselves. Let's start with that. That's easier to answer. So what we've established is our Frey Day. So every Friday we have a share out with the whole team. Learnings about AI, learnings that we gathered in projects, stuff that people just tested. We share new papers that talk about the research, some do's and don'ts, some tools that work pretty well, some libraries that work pretty well, some others that don't, because we are reading so much. And in especially the LinkedIn bubble, there is different content compared to the content my business partner sees or one of the developers sees. So that's one thing that we established. So every Friday we share out, we try out new things. For example, we tested the product recognizer API by Google the other day. That came through an external request, and we were like, okay, let's figure out how good it is to identify and recognize products and get the prices and the vendor out of image of a cluttered space or some room like behind me, and it worked pretty well. So that's a learning that took us, I don't know, an hour, that person to come up with that result and presented the results and how he approached it. And fun fact, he did some of the stuff with white coding. So he was using AI to test AI.
Right.
Quite smart. And that's the way how we approach it. I don't know what FutureBrains will be like in 3 to 5 years. I don't freaking know. If you would have, FutureBrains was different 3 years ago because we were focusing on platform economy and platform-based business models. Yes, we still do, but our focus changed a little bit and the services that we provide. Was I aware of that 3 years ago? No, but I was open for that pivot and that change. So, and we have to figure out what the technology evolvement means for us. And that's only by using the technology and by talking as a team and as the leadership about it. That's the second question.
All right. Yeah.
Before we jump into the other
true,
stuff.
Though it was an unfair question because I don't think anyone knows what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years, other than the fact that I think we can both agree on AI is going to continue to grow and become more ingrained in everyday society, right?
Yes, but I think it's not an unfair question, because you have to think about it. Because if you don't raise the big question, you sit here in that chair in the comfort zone, and you don't ask whether the stuff that you've been doing the past 6 months is the stuff that you should the 6 months ahead of you. And I like those challenging questions, but I have an answer to your first question, where I see currently a lot of potential for the next 3 to 5 years. For our listeners, take a piece of paper and a pen. So I have one with me. No, just kidding. Different possibilities or aspects. Training of the large language models is expensive. Nobody knows whether the money that has been invested will ever be, whether there will ever be like the return on invest. Nobody knows, because the amount is huge. But there is, especially within Europe, in like established industries, there is a huge potential for small language models. So instead of going broad and trying to learn any kind of information that's out there and creating results that are also very average and very broad, focusing on small language models, for example, for tax consultants or for lawyers of a specific niche, because the results of the small language models will be much better than using a large language model. They are already good in the stated fields, but if you want to have like a result that's close to 100% kind of,
It's got to be
then
specialized.
exactly. Then you don't need, if you're, I don't know, a lawyer for, which example, for insurance related issues. I mean, it's just an example. And you know, like every rule and every law that's out there, this person is not interested about the rules and regulations for houses or for how to behave on the streets and stuff like that. So narrow down the information that goes into the model and be very specific. And I think there is a lot of potential. Same counts for the manufacturing industry. There is so much know-how out there that you can bake into a small language model that's specific for your niche or for your market. And I think there is a lot of potential, because training a small language model is, of course, more efficient and not as expensive as like going with billions and billions of parameters. And I think there is a huge potential. And
Yeah, I agree.
the second and the second thing that's also kind of related to that's models that can run on our mobile phones. And Apple is currently looking into that space, because you don't want to send any piece of information to the cloud or to a central model, because it's a private picture or it's some piece of information that you don't want to share. So it should happen on the phone, the inference and the result generation. So those are two areas where I think we're going to see a lot of new stuff happening in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, to go back to, looking forward, it wasn't too many years ago, I was in a suit and tie commuting into New York City every day, right? That 30-year career where, you told me, what's your future going to be? I'm going to, do this for the rest of my life and retire, hopefully. And, my wife and I'll travel. And now look at me, I'm doing podcasts. I have AI business that builds custom solutions to help companies fix their problems and help them grow and succeed. You asked me that before. That never in a million years was I thinking of that. Right. And it was that step of getting out of my comfort zone that created that. And it's been fantastic. It's changed my life. It's that comfort zone is probably going to be the key word of today's podcast, getting out of your comfort zone, right? Take that first step.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every big story starts with that. I mean, even there was a pretty good podcast with Jensen Huang, the CEO and founder of NVIDIA, where he was telling about the early beginnings of NVIDIA. And this was far away of having product market fit or even having a problem. But he was
Now look at
believing
it, it's trillions of dollars.
exactly. And he was like pushing forward, and it was really hard for him to raise money, because the gaming industry wasn't existing like he was like it was needed or necessary for him to be successful. The computer technology wasn't that far, but he kept like improving and looking for the market and trying to figure out how to approach best. And now, like you said, look at it. And it's still that single person with 50 or 60 direct reports that manages that big company and decides like pretty quickly and does his thing. And he left his comfort zone. He's not
Right.
even today, he's not sitting there and stating, I have enough money in the bank and my shares are like enough for the 100 generations after me. No, look at all those big tech people. They still leave their comfort zone because money is not there. They're
It's
like
not their driving force for sure.
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
It's the aspect of creating something that's of value and to like achieve the next step.
Yeah. It's so true. Future brains. It's for professional service firms. Demonstrating tangible results is key, right? For your clients and your customers. Do you have a framework, or how do you define and achieve a measurable impact for your clients? Is it
Good.
setting specific goals? Is it, because everyone success is different, right? Success for
Right.
one person is different than the next. So, and not every client that you have or customer that you have, whatever you want to call them, is the same. So how do you guys measure that? Do you have a specific, and I understand if you can't say the name of the company, you have a specific success story that exemplifies this, or?
Yes, I mean there are different aspects, and I have to think about for a second how to approach that question. So first of all, speed to market or speed to solution is like key for us. Usually we go into projects and we say we don't produce any slides. That's a waste of time. We want to be more interactive. Let's work on a Miro board. Let's work even on a whiteboard. Very old school, but it works pretty well. Come up with assumptions. Think about, okay, what's the riskiest item that we need to tackle down first. And that's where you put the focus on. So moving everything aside that's distracting and that's just a waste of time, and focusing on the one things where we don't know yet how to approach them and whether the big picture will be successful. So that's one thing. And how do we approach projects? For example, if we have like a bigger product vision, like I stated, we start with the assumptions and the riskiest items first, and trying to get the facts and figures out of the market, whether we are right or wrong. That's the first step. And then we usually go into prototyping, and that means 4 to 5 days. And then we have a good mixture of a piece of tech where maybe 1 or 2 use cases are developed and some others are just mocks and are not fully functional, because we don't know yet whether we need them or whether it's some pieces that we're going to throw away. But we have something after 4 to 5 days that we have been developing with the business people of our client. And in an ideal world where also the client is willing, open to, is to pull in their end clients and end users. So you have you have the business knowledge at the table, you have the market at the table, and you have the tech people at the table. And within 4 to 5 days, you achieve so much stuff that usually takes months or even a year. Because let's be honest, and first to summarize it, we bring in the focus and to be crystal clear on what we want to achieve and the questions that we have to get answered in order to move forward and to come up with the next version of the vision or the next piece of the roadmap and the next piece of the feature set. So focus is one thing that we bring into the game. Yeah, it's really about the focus, getting rid of everything that's distracting, and speed, of course, speed to market, speed to solution, also when it comes to automating things internally. So get rid of, let's have a meeting in 6 weeks. And then you discuss something and you produce some set of slides. And then, okay, next meeting will be 6 weeks ahead of now. Okay, so you lost 12 weeks because the next meeting you start again like, okay, what have we been talking about? Okay, let's pull up the meeting minutes. And we talked about, was it really this thing, or how did you mean that?
You'll lose so much. And, one of the pillars
Absolutely.
of success is speed, right? It's such an important pillar to success is speed. Because,
Absolutely.
because you lose the intention of the moment. You'll lose that thought or that creativity that is going on with that collaboration. And to do something 6 weeks down the road doesn't make sense. I agree with that 100%.
Exactly, and there is one good example that I want to highlight that was in the telecommunications market where we followed that approach and we did like those hackathon or design sprint like approaches a couple of times, and the results were great because it was very focused and speed was everything, and we had to decide on stuff whether going left or right, and we had to talk to people, and we had to go into interviews and present the piece of technology that we developed, and we got the details. And right after that, we put the stuff where we had enough evidence that we are on the right track into a regular product life cycle. And then new assumptions were on the table and new ideas, and we had to figure out, okay, the right approach. And then we went again into that hackathon like approach. And what we learned over time is, especially currently in times where budgets are also quite constrained, to slice that big elephant into small chunks and to say, okay, in 2 weeks, we're going to achieve that. In 4 weeks, we're going to achieve that. In 6 weeks, this. I don't want to mention Scrum or agile development because people, some understand it, some don't, some hate it, others like it. But to think about, okay, what kind of value or which value do I want to provide in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks ahead of now? That's something we come up with quite early. So if we talk to prospects, that's actually the first thing we think about. We have tools for that to help us. Of course, there is AI in the background. We would be quite dumb if not using it because we preach it and then are you using it? No, we don't. And to make it more tangible for people, instead of saying, okay, in 12 months, we're going to have that big rocket that brings us to Mars. And people are like, oh, 12 months. And then after 4 weeks, okay, what do we have? Yeah, nothing that you can really use. And because we are working in the back end and this and that, and we have to wire everything up. And then after 8 weeks, the client again is like, okay, so is there something I can use? No, because we have to do this and that. And there's nothing that's really user facing. That's not the approach that we follow. We want to see the results pretty quickly and we deliver. So not only seeing them and expecting them, we deliver.
Yeah. Speed keeps people involved and alert. This has been an awesome conversation in my mind. Thank you so much. Is there a leaving thought, for lack of a better term, that you'd like to give our listeners, something about futurebrains or?
It's a good question because I don't want to go down the sales rabbit hole.
No, it's okay.
No, but
But
if there are people out there that are struggling with their product or even with their automations, because we have the technology know-how, and whether we come up with a nice workflow that solves a problem or helping some people out with a product strategy, it's the same know-how to a certain extent. If there are people out there that are struggling with achieving results, I'm happy to jump on a call and to listen firstly, because that's quite important, why they are struggling and what they have tried and what went well, what didn't, to figure out what would be the right approach. Because coming back to my initial statement, it's a lot about culture, mindset. For the tech stuff of things, there is almost a solution for everything that we have out there. But it's culture, it's the approach, it's bringing the right people together. So that's an open invite to approach me and jump on a call and we can talk about the challenges and why there are no achievements.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm sure our audience is going to love it.